Story 1. The Whispering Attic. In the creaking old house on Elm Street, Sarah moved in during a stormy autumn night. The attic door upstairs rattled faintly, though no wind could reach it from below. She dismissed it as settling beams, unpacking boxes under the dim yellow light. But as midnight struck, the whispers began, soft like silk tearing in the dark. Curiosity pulled her up the narrow stairs, flashlight beam slicing through dust motes. The air grew thick, carrying scents of mothballs and something faintly metallic. She found an old trunk, its lock rusted, etched with initials that matched her own. Fingers trembling, she pried it open, revealing yellowed letters from a century ago. The first confession spilled out in faded ink, a tale of betrayal in the family line. The writer begged forgiveness for a crime hidden in these very walls. Sarah read aloud, her voice echoing unnaturally, as shadows lengthened on the beams. A chill gripped her spine when she realized the voice wasn't just hers anymore. Footsteps pattered above the ceiling, impossible in the empty space. She bolted down, slamming the door, but the whispers followed like loyal ghosts. That night, dreams twisted into visions of the past, pulling her into the sinner's regret. By dawn, Sarah knew. The attic held more than memories. It hungered for absolution. Now, years later, she avoids that house, but on quiet nights the trunk calls. New owners report the same murmurs, the same trunk appearing unbidden. Sarah's own confession. She left the letters behind, dooming another soul. In the end, the attic doesn't whisper secrets. It devours them whole. #### Story 2. The Hitchhiker's Shadow. On a fog-shrouded highway at dusk, Tom picked up the pale woman in a tattered dress. Her eyes were hollow like polished obsidian, and she spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. She claimed a breakdown miles back, but her skin felt too cold against the seat. As rain lashed the windshield, she began her midnight confession, unprompted and low. It started with a love gone sour, a husband who drank and struck in the dim kitchen light. One night, the rage boiled over. She grabbed the knife from the drawer, hands steady. The blood pooled warm on the linoleum, and she watched him gasp his last breath. Tom gripped the wheel tighter, glancing at her. Why tell a stranger this now? The road curved into blackness, fog swallowing the taillights ahead. She described burying him in the woods, under the oak where they once carved hearts. But the body vanished by dawn, and shadows began to follow her home. Tom's radio crackled static, her voice overlapping the white noise, insistent. He pulled over at a diner, heart pounding, but she was gone, no trace on the seat. Days later, police found Tom's car abandoned, his wallet inside with her photo clipped. The Hitchhiker, a ghost from 1957, confessing eternally to drivers who stop. Tom's final words scrawled on a napkin. She said sorry, but the shadow stayed. ### Story 3. The Doll's Silent Plea. Little Emma found the porcelain doll in the thrift store, its eyes too wide, dress stained. At home, she placed it on the shelf, whispering secrets to its cracked smile. That night, under moonlight filtering through lace curtains, the doll's head turned. A tiny voice emerged, brittle as autumn leaves, starting its bone-chilling confession. It spoke of a girl long ago, dressed in finery for a party that never ended. The father, in drunken fury, swung the doll like a club, shattering her skull. Hidden in the attic, the spirit lingered, watching families come and go. Emma froze, clutching her blanket, as the doll's glass eyes locked on hers. The plea grew desperate. "Bury me where the roses bleed," it rasped. Emma dreamed of thorny vines choking a garden, petals dark with old blood. Waking sweat-soaked, she checked the shelf. The doll now sat closer, arm outstretched. Her parents laughed it off as imagination, but Emma knew terror's quiet truth. She dug in the backyard at dawn, unearthing a tiny box with faded ribbons. The doll went silent after burial, but shadows in the house lingered longer. Emma moved away, but Pax, the doll's twin, fearing the cycle's restart. Confession's curse. Innocence invites the dead to whisper back. Story 4. The Midnight Train Passenger. The 2:17 a.m. train rattled through empty stations, carrying Mark alone in the dim car. A man in a fedora boarded at the fogged platform, coat dripping like fresh ink. He sat across, eyes shadowed, and lit a cigarette that smelled of sulfur and regret. As the rails hummed their lullaby, he leaned in for his spectral confession. It was 1942, wartime shadows, when he sold secrets for a pouch of bills. The bomb he tipped off leveled a block, screams echoing in his fevered sleep. He jumped tracks to escape the ghosts, but they rode the rails with him forever. Mark shifted uncomfortably, the car's lights flickering like dying fireflies. The stranger detailed faces twisted in agony, children he condemned without glance. "Redemption's a lie," he murmured, smoke curling into Mark's lungs, choking. The train braked hard at an unmarked stop, doors hissing open to void. Mark blinked, the seat empty, but ash dusted his lapel like fallen snow. Police found the train derailed next morn, Mark's body twisted in the wreckage. No fedora man on records, just whispers of a traitor who never left the line. His confession, etched in frost on the window. "I board again tonight. The midnight train runs empty now, waiting for the next ear to lend." Story 5. The basement's hidden tape. Renovating the Victorian, Alex uncovered the basement tape in a rusted player. Static hissed first, then a woman's voice, frantic, from the grainy 80s reel. She described the crawlspace ritual, candles flickering on symbols in chalk. Midnight confession poured out, summoning something that wore her husband's face. It started with grief, their baby lost to fever, desperation clawing the heart. The book promised return, but the thing that answered slithered from the dark. It mimicked his laugh, but eyes gleamed wrong, skin peeling like wet paper. Alex paused the tape, sweat beading, the basement air turning fetid sweet. Her voice cracked on details, nights of mimicry turning to feasts in the gloom. She stabbed it with a ritual knife, but it laughed, bubbling black ichor. The tape ended abruptly, a scream cut short by the player's whine. Footsteps echoed above, impossible house empty, drawing Alex deeper down. He smashed the player, fleeing upstairs, but the voice hummed in his radio static. "Neighbors say the house eats tenants, tapes multiplying in the walls." Alex's last log. "It's not her husband, it's me now, confessing your sins." The basement door locks from inside, waiting for the next hand to turn it. Story 6. The mirror's fractured gaze. In the antique shop's backroom, Lena bought the ornate mirror, frame carved with thorns. At home, it hung crooked, reflecting her face with eyes slightly askew. That eve, as candles guttered low, a reflection lingered when she turned away. A whisper from the glass began the confession, lips moving in sync with hers. The previous owner confessed to vanity's blade, poisoning rivals for beauty's crown. One by one, they withered, skin sagging like melted wax under her gaze. The mirror drank their last breaths, trapping souls in its silvered depths. Lena backed away, but her handprint smeared blood red on the cool surface. Deeper it delved, the final victim, her sister, clawing at the glass from inside. Lena's reflection smirked independently, mouthing threats in a voice not her own. She smashed it at dawn, shards scattering like ice, but fragments reformed elsewhere. Each piece held a sliver of the witch's glee, watching from walls and floors. Months on, Lena avoids mirrors, but glimpses herself in puddles, twisted. The shop owner vanished, mirror back on the shelf, price slashed. Her confession. She kept a shard as trophy, now whispering her own dark wants. Fractured gazes never forgive, they multiply the sins they see. Story 7. The Forgotten Graveyard Shift. Working the graveyard shift at the old cemetery, Nate heard the soil shift at 3 a.m. A hand, pale and claw-like, burst from the earth near the willow tree. It grasped air, then pulled a figure free. Dripping mud, eyes milky white. The risen one shambled close, rasping its midnight confession through cracked lips. Buried alive in 1890. Walled in a pauper's plot for unpaid debts. The sexton laughed as dirt rained down, shovels striking wood like thunder. Claustrophobia's madness set in, nails splintering on the coffin lid. Nate's flashlight trembled, beam catching teeth yellowed by soil's embrace. It detailed the crawl through roots and worms, lungs burning for stolen air. Vengeance brewed in the dark, plotting against the living's careless steps. Nate ran for the gate, but locks rusted shut, the thing's grip on his ankle cold. Its voice echoed in his skull. "Join me, brother, in the root-woven bed." Dawn broke the spell, the grave resealed, but Nate quit, hands forever soiled. Markers now bear his name too, added hasty after the accident. Confessions toll. He dug for treasure that night, unearthing more than gold. Graveyards shift at midnight, claiming those who listen too long. #### Story 8. The phone booth phantom. Stranded in the rain-slicked town, Mia ducked into the lone phone booth at dusk. The receiver was warm, as if recently held, dial tone humming like breath. She dialed home, but a man's voice answered, garbled, pleading from static. His midnight confession flooded the line, words tumbling like spilled mercury. It was 1973, affair with the mayor's wife, passion turning to possessive chains. He strangled her in jealousy, body slumped in this very booth's shadow. Cops ruled accident, but guilt wired him to the phone, eternal caller. Mia's heart raced, glass fogging with her breath, his sighs sinking close. He begged details of the disposal, weights in the river, bubbles marking the sink. The booth's light buzzed erratic, his form flickering in the rain-streaked reflection. She hung up, fleeing, but the phone rang insistent from her pocket. Impossible. His voice pursued, "Tell her I'm sorry before the current takes me again." No body ever found, booth demolished, but stragglers hear the dial tone hum. Mia's number changed, yet calls come at midnight, confessions evolving hers. Phantom's curse. One sin confessed pulls another into the wire's web. Phone booths stand empty now, but the line never truly goes dead. ### Story 9. The nursery's rocking chair. New parents. The Lanes bought the creaky rocker for baby Tim's sunlit nursery. It swayed on its own at nap's end, wood groaning like old bones settling. One night, under the mobile's slow spin, a lullaby hummed from empty air. The chair's ghost confessed then, voice soft as faded cotton laced with sorrow. A mother in 1920s, rocking her fevered child through influenza's grip. Quarantine came swift. She hid him here, whispering promises against the plague. Officials burned the house, chair surviving in ash, her wail trapped in slats. The Lanes woke to Tim's cries, chair rocking frantic, shadows cradling empty. She detailed the fire's roar, child's coughs turning to silence in her arms. Now she rocks the living, seeking the one she lost in flame's cruel maw. They donated it quick, but Tim thrashes in sleep, humming her tune. Nursery walls echo faintly, chair reappearing in attics unbidden. The Lanes fled town, but rocking creaks in their dreams, confessions unending. Antique dealers warn. It chooses babes, weaving their breaths into its song. Their final whisper. We burned it, but she sings our guilt instead. Rockers never still. They cradle sins too heavy for mortal arms. ### Story 10. The Lighthouse Keeper's Log. Storm-lashed cliffs. The lighthouse beam swept the sea as Jack read the old log. Entries from 1915, ink blurred by salt, chronicling the keeper's descent. At midnight's toll, pages turned themselves, voice rising from paper's veins. The keeper's confession unfurled, briny and broken like waves on jagged rock. Shipwreck that fogged night, cargo of gold tempting his isolated greed. He doused the light deliberate, watching hulls splinter on reefs below. Sailors' screams carried on wind, their gold now buried under floorboards. Jack's lantern dimmed, shadows coiling like tentacles from the log's heart. He confessed the ghost's arrival, drowned faces pressing glass, mouths gaping pleas. One by one, they dragged him under in riptides of remorse and tide. Jack slammed the book, but the beam swung wild, illuminating sodden footprints. Voice persisted. The gold's yours now, dig and join the chorus below. Rescue came at dawn, log vanished, lighthouse automated and cold. Jack sails no more, but harbors hear his log read aloud in gales. Confessions anchor. Greed chains souls to beacons that never forgive. Lighthouse beams sweep empty now, but the dark between pulses with cries. #### Story 11. The Orphanage Echo. Renovating the shuttered orphanage, Clara heard children's laughter in empty halls. Dust-sheeted beds lined the dorm, but at midnight, covers rippled like breaths. A chorus of tiny voices rose from the walls, piping their collective confession. It began with the matron's rod, 1930s cruelty hidden behind stern smiles. Beatings for whispers, starvation for play, the weakest vanishing into night. One storm-lashed Eve, the boldest plotted, pillows over her face in sleep. Her thrashing stilled, but spirits stirred, binding the orphans in eternal play. Clara's hammer slipped, echoes giggling closer, small hands tugging her sleeve. They detailed the cover-up, body to the furnace, ashes scattered in the yard. Now they lure adults to join games that twist into nightmares unending. Clara barricaded doors, but laughter seeped under, keys turning on their own. Dawn found her curled fetal, whispering rhymes she never learned. The orphanage raised, but new builds hear the patter of feet overhead. Clara institutionalized, muttering of plays where losers stay forever. Echoes toll. Innocence's rage echoes louder than any adult scream. Empty halls wait, giggling for the next hand to swing the door. ### Story 12. The Carnival's Midway Curse. The derelict carnival's midway, under harvest moon, drew thrill-seekers like moths. Rusty Ferris wheel creaked slow, but a clown's faded poster peeled to reveal eyes. At the stroke of 12, grease paint laughter bubbled from the ticket booth. The carnie's confession slithered out, honking nasal, reeking of popcorn and rot. Big Top Betrayal 1952. Rigging the lion's cage for a rival's mauling show. Crowds cheered the blood, but the beast turned, jaws snapping his arm clean. He crawled to the funhouse, mirrors multiplying his agony into infinity. Visitors scattered as spotlights flickered, clown nose honking from the dark. He wailed of the sawdust grave, body parts stitched by a mad mechanic's hand. Now he haunts the rides, twisting fates of those who laugh too loud. One rider vanished mid-scream, carny grin painted on the empty seat. The midway emptied, but echoes honk invitations on foggy autumn nights. Cleanup crews burn the tents, but clowns reappear in reflections unbidden. Survivors confess their own thrills at the gore, guilt clowning their dreams. Curse's finale. Carnival's end, but the midway's call pulls souls back in. Rides spin silent now, waiting for midnight's next ticket punch. ### Story 13. The Surgeon's Scalpel Secret. In the abandoned hospital wing, Dr. Ellis explored by flashlight's thin beam. Or tables stained rust brown, instruments glinting under cobweb veils. Midnight's hush broke with a scalpel's scrape, voice clinical and detached. The surgeon's confession dissected the air, precise as an incision's first cut. 1940s experiments, war's orphans as subjects for advances in the mind. He carved lobes for obedience, eyes unblinking behind masks' white fog. One boy woke mid-cut, screams muffled by ether, spirit fleeing the blade. Ellis's light sputtered, shadows forming faces on the tiled walls. Details flowed cold, jars of brains lining shelves, labeled with faded hopes. The boy returned nightly, scalpel in spectral hand, reversing the cuts. Ellis fled, gurney rolling but doors sealed, the voice charting his veins. "Join the collection," it purred, blade's edge kissing his temple chill. Demolition dawned, hospital crumbled, but new clinics hear the scrape echo. Ellis retired, hands trembling, confessing to empty chairs his voyeur sins. Secret slice. Medicine heals, but some wounds fester in the healer's soul. Scalpels lie dull now, but the ore light hums for the next steady hand. #### Story 14. The Widow's Web. The Victorian Widow's Walk overlooked crashing waves, where Eliza paced at dusk. Spider silk draped the rails, unnatural thick, pulsing faintly in the breeze. At the witching hour, threads vibrated with a woman's hiss, silken confession. It wove of 1880s jealousy, husband ensnared by a siren's dockside song. She spun the web in attic looms, infused with venom from midnight hunts. Lured him home, strands binding limbs as fangs pierced the faithless throat. Body mummified in silk, hidden in rafters, heart still beating slow. Eliza's lantern swung, webs tightening like nooses on the open air. The widow detailed lovers who followed, each cocooned in escalating art. Now the house hunts widows anew, threads whispering seductions from walls. Eliza tangled, pulled ceiling ward, silk muffling her inherited pleas. Dawn burned strands, but regrowth itched under skin, craving the weave. The walk condemned, house boarded, but spiders spin in neighbors' dreams. Eliza vanished, cocoon found in attic, her face serene in eternal spin. Web's widowhood. Love binds tighter than hate, ensnaring the spinner last. Threads glisten empty now, but the breeze carries invitations to entwine. ### Story 15. The Miner's Lamp Legacy. Deep in the collapsed mine shaft, relic hunter Ben ignited the old miner's lamp. Flame danced yellow, casting veins of coal into grotesque writhing shapes. Midnight's depth amplified a gravelly cough, confession hacking from the dark. The canary's silence broke as the voice detailed 1920s cave-in greed. Boss pushed shifts longer, props skimping for profit, walls groaning warning. He fled topside as timbers cracked, trapping 30 souls in choking black. Their picks still rang in his ears, accusations etched in falling slate. Ben's lamp sputtered, air thickening with dust that tasted of bitter coal. He confessed the payoffs, widows' claims buried like the dead below. Ghosts clawed upward now, lamps multiplying in hands of spectral kin. Ben's beam fractured, figures shambling close, eyes glowing ember red. "Light our way out," they chorused, picks swinging in unison's dirge. Rescue airlifted him, mind sealed forever, lamp extinguished in his grip. Ben pawned it quick, but new owners cough confessions in their sleep. Legacies load. Lamps illuminate truth, but some fires consume the bearer. Shafts echo empty, but midnight strikes, and the picks resume their toll. ### Story 16. The Ballerina's Point Curse. The dusty theater stage, under spotless ghosts, hosted Lena's midnight rehearsal. Tutus hung limp in wings, but slippers pattered solo in the footlights. A pirouette's grace turned to the dancer's sigh, confession end point and pained. It twirled of 1930s rivalry, star supplanted by a rival's rising star. She tampered the rigging, chandelier crashing mid-act, glass raining like hail. The understudy fell limp, but rose spectral, toes bleeding through satin. Encore after encore, she haunts the boards, forcing partners to her fatal spin. Lena's spotlight warmed, but slippers circled her, laces snaking like veins. Details danced dark, the rival's spirit pirouetting on broken necks since. Now she claims dancers, twisting limbs into eternal arabesques of agony. Lena slipped in blood, her own, curtains crashing as applause thundered wrong. Dawn swept the stage clean, but tutus sway with invisible winds. Theater raised for condos, but mirrors reflect eternal encores in glass. Lena crippled wheels her chair, hearing slippers tap behind closed eyes. Curses crescendo. Grace demands perfection, damning the flawed to flawed steps. Spotlights dim now, but the point calls, shoes fitting the next lithe foot. #### Story 17. The Professor's Forbidden Tome. In the university's restricted stacks, grad student Ray cracked the leather-bound tome. Pages smelled of incense and decay. Illustrations writhing under candle flicker. Midnight's chime unbound the script, voice professorial, droning invocation. The author's confession recited itself, syllables slithering like serpents' tongues. Victorian occultist, summoning elder gods for tenure's forbidden knowledge. He bartered souls, students lured to rituals in the sub-basement's gloom. One rite unbound the abyss, tendrils coiling his mind into madness maze. Ray's candle guttered, shelves leaning as whispers multiplied in marginalia. He detailed the devouring, acolytes pulped into ink, binding the grimoire's skin. Now it seeks scholars, pages appending their screams to the endless text. Ray slammed shut, but runes burned on his palms, tome reforming in his bag. "Read on," it urged, voice now his, lecturing voids in the stack's hush. Library purged the wing, tome ashes scattered, but footnotes appear in journals. Ray tenured mad, mumbling incantations to empty lecture halls. Tome's theorem: knowledge devours the knower, footnotes feasting last. Stacks stand silent, but midnight pages rustle, inviting the next quill. ### Story 18. The Fisherman's Net Haul. Moon-tugged tides lapped the pier where old Gus cast his net at witching hour. It hauled heavy, straining ropes with something thrashing beyond fish's frenzy. Dripping from the mesh, a woman's form emerged, scales glinting, eyes sea-deep. Her confession bubbled forth, saline and savage, like foam on storm-swept rocks. Ship's cook in 1800s, galley slaves to scurvy, she spiced the stew with mercy. Poisoned the crew slow, watching bellies bloat under the captain's lash. Mutiny's end. Keel hauled herself overboard, fins sprouting in the depths curse. Gus's lantern swung, net tightening as gills flared on her neck's pale line. She wailed of the hunt, luring sailors with songs, dragging them to coral crypts. Now nets claim her kin, but she weaves confessions into every fisher's catch. Gus cut loose, plunging her back, but hooks caught his flesh in recoil. Waves claimed the pier's edge, her laughter merging with the gull's cries. Coast Guard logs the wreck, Gus missing, net washed ashore with his bones. Harbor's whisper of mermaid hulls, confessions sung in siren's scale. Nets nadir, seas give and take, but drowned sins surface ever again. Tides recede quiet, but midnight casts pull deeper than mortal lines. ### Story 19. The Innkeeper's Room Key. The roadside inn's vacancy sign flickered at midnight as weary traveler Sam checked in. Room 13's key turned sticky, door sighing open to dust-moated air. Footfalls padded the hall behind, but turning revealed only shadows stretch. The innkeeper's voice creaked from the walls, confession keyed to the lock's tumblers. Prohibition haunt, 1920s. She brewed the rotgut in basement stills. One batch turned bad, patrons foaming at mouths, eyes bursting in agony. She boarded the doors, letting thirst claim the rest in their fevered beds. Sam's key warmed in palm, bed creaking as if sat upon by unseen weight. Details distilled dark, bodies stacked like cordwood, lime in the foundation poured. Now she hosts the poisoned, keys duplicating sins in guests' pockets. Sam dreamed the foam rising, waking to screams muffled through thin walls. Dawn checkout. Key stuck fast, room number shifting to his own address. In demolished for highway, but motels echo her slurred welcomes nightly. Sam drives endless, confessing to mirrors his own bootleg burdens. Key's kingdom. Hospitality hides horrors, unlocking rooms in the mind. Vacancies fill slow now, but the sign beckons wanderers to check in. Hashtag story 20. The clockmaker's ticking heart. In the clock shop's backroom, heir to the trade, young Theo wound the grandfather clock. Pendulum swung hypnotic, but at midnight's bong, gears ground to a whisper. A heartbeat synced within, voice ticking out the artisan's final confession. It chimed of 1890's obsession, crafting a timepiece from a debtor's stolen heart. The man defaulted, so Theo's ancestor carved him open under lantern's gleam. Valves and ventricles rewired into escapements, ticks pulsing eternal debt. Wound once, it never stopped, devouring owners who missed the chime. Theo's screwdriver slipped, hands pricked as the face smiled with ruby hands. He detailed the curse. Each wind shortens life, heart claiming the winder's beat. Now it haunts heirlooms, chimes tolling sins at the stroke of 12. Theo smashed the glass, but shards reformed, pendulum slicing his wrist precise. Morning found the shop empty. Clocks all stopped at his final gasp. Auction dispersed the pieces, but buyers hear ticks beneath their skin. Theo's ghost whines nightly, confessing the craft that crafts its own end. Heart's horology. Time heals nothing. It harvests the debts we ignore. Clocks stand still now, but midnight bongs resume, hands circling the damned.